Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, this is a special interview for me. It's gonna change worlds and change people's lives. My friend Paul has an amazing story. He's an speaker, he's an author, he's a producer. He's got so many accolades, and we'll get all into that. But most of all, he's a child of God, and he's trying to change the world by helping children that are being trafficked and women that are being trafficked around the world. You might have seen this little movie; it made a dollar or two called "Sound of Freedom," and we're going to be talking about that. But Paul, my brother, welcome to the
Richard,
show, and thank you so much.
it's an honor to be on here to share with your audience.
I love it. And before we even get started, I want to give a shout out to my brother Eric. If you guys don't know Eric Allen, you need to know Eric Allen, one of my best friends and my brother in Christ. If you haven't checked out his episode with Paul, check it out at Eric's podcast. So thank you, Eric. Before we even get started, what is your definition of resiliency?
Resiliency. You know what? I'm going to give that definition to the kids that bounce back after being in a place that was so dark and so difficult. In fact, I want to start with one story that's not known. In fact, I only heard this story a few weeks ago. I was talking with one of my dearest friends, Joseph. He was one of the undercover operators on the Columbia rescue, the one that Sound of Freedom was based around. And he's a Krav Maga trainer, one of the best in the world, an amazing man. And he was tasked to be there as security on one of the boats of the children that were being brought from the mainland to this island where we're going to have this supposed sex party. We're bringing all the traffickers there, and these traffickers had brought 54 children. And there was two massive boats. Joseph talks about it. He realizes the magnitude of the problem when these boats, the size of school buses, were completely filled with these kids. And as they were coming out, there were some older kids that were in their late teens, and there were some younger children who were, some of them, being trafficked for the first time, or this was, they had only been being trafficked for a month or two. And they were obviously scared, really scared. And he said that a couple of the older children huddled the younger ones together. He didn't know what they were saying because the boat was super loud, he said, but then he saw them all holding hands. And one of the older children bowed his head and offered up a prayer. I don't know what the words were said, but I'm sure it was a prayer of comfort, a plea to God to ease their suffering. And little did they know that prayer was already being answered. That there were good men and women that were answering the call of God there on that island, waiting for them to come. And they weren't going to have to go through that hell. The resiliency of those older children in holding on to a connection with God in their darkest hour was something that we all can turn to. We all can say, okay, I don't see a way out. I've been here before, and it's really dark, and it's really ugly, and it's really hard, and I don't see a way out, but I'm pleading for a miracle. That's what happened that day. And I think all of us can learn from the faith of those children that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There are good people that are they're heeding to the call of God, that are making this world a better place, and that we all can look forward to a life of freedom where we can all voice that sound of freedom. The sound of freedom, it's not just the sound of the children that were being rescued at the time in Colombia. Wasn't there just their singing. It should be for a battle cry for all of us to take a look at the areas in our life that we are in slavery, our addictions to pornography, our addictions to alcohol, our clinging on to the trauma of our own childhood, or the things that we've done in our past, our sins, all of those things, everything can be washed away. We can all voice that sound of freedom and move forward into a brand new life with the help of God.
And I love it. And like we were talking before I got on camera, there's only 2 movies, and I'm a big TV buff and movie buff. There's only 2 movies that ever affected me really hard. And the one was American Sniper, the Chris Kyle story. And that's why I wear this hat, because I promised his wife that I would always honor Chris. That's why I wear the hat, and she knows that, and that's why I'm not going bald, obviously, but that's why I wear the hat. But after I watched your movie and his movie, is the only time I've ever just sat there and felt beat up. I felt like I was slapped around, because I was in the closet, I think, like so many millions of people are, not even knowing what's really happening around the world. I mean, we've heard it here, Epstein Island, blah, everybody's making jokes, but I never realized how many children go missing every day in the world, not just the United States, but in the world, and how bad this, and like you said earlier, before we got on, it's an epidemic of what's going on. And a lot of people, a lot of my veteran friends are like, bro, you got to watch this movie. You got to watch the movie. And a lot of my veteran friends, their civilian counterparts were telling them, no, you don't need to watch a movie. It's all fake. It's all BS. And when I watched it, and then when I watched your episode, and then I talked with Eric, I couldn't believe, how you guys, how you were treated afterwards. That they tried to jam you up. They tried to jam Tim up after this, and it was a whole bunch of crap. So I think we're going to talk about that today. But tell us, our people, a little bit about you. Where'd you come from, and how did you get involved in this whole crazy world?
Well, I have a unique background. I was in the business world. In fact, way back, as a child, I wanted to be a brain surgeon in the beginning. I was getting bullied by other kids, and I came home, told my mom I wanted to be a brain surgeon to help fix how people think. And I changed that to wanting to become a heart surgeon. I think intuitively I realized that the only way to fix the brain is to fix the heart in things like that. And I continued. I actually went all the way through all of my pre-med classes in high school and in college. And I was a couple months away from taking the MCAT. I got in a major car accident, and I severed the tendons in my hand. And they said, Paul, you can be a regular doctor. I said, I don't want to be a regular anything. I didn't want to be a doctor. I wanted to be a surgeon, not a regular surgeon, but a heart surgeon. And not even a regular heart. I wanted to be a heart surgeon who operated on children. I wanted to be a pediatric cardiologist. And that kind of dashed those dreams. So I changed my major to business and finance and ended up building some pretty successful companies. And in the process, I always intuitively felt like I would be involved in a war in some way. And I honor the good men and women in law enforcement and who have served in the military, anybody who puts their life in danger for the safety of mine and my family deserves my respect. And I've been trained by a lot of them. I've been really good friends with a lot of Navy SEALs and Green Berets and other Krav Maga agents. In fact, one good friend. He's trained the CIA, FBI, even the Homeland Security and Secret Service on on how to neutralize a threat using everything from a comb to a handkerchief, right? And he's very, very, very good. And we've trained a bunch with him. So these were all fun things that I did over the years, and I knew how to handle myself in a dangerous place. But fast forward, I was in the financial sense, I was a Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, I was running a large investment fund that I had helped to co-found, and I was a big part of it, raising money. I had a big arrogant attitude about life, lots of money, lots of parties, and I was never doing any illegal things. I was never attracted to minors, none of that. But I had big parties at my house with beautiful women and lots of, and it wasn't in line integrity wise with the man that I really am and my connection with God. But I was the perfect candidate for a role. I got a call about 10 years ago from the Attorney General in Utah and the Homeland Security agent that Jim Caviezel plays in the movie. And I was told about these children that were being sold for sex in this trafficking ring in Colombia. And they needed like $50,000 to help rescue these kids. And I had donated a lot of money to child-related charities. I was on the Make-A-Wish board of directors in the area. I was the incoming chairman for Make-A-Wish in the area when I got this call. And I thought, $10,000 with Make-A-Wish, I can send a little girl to Disneyland with her family, which is important. She's struggling with cancer, and that dream helps her to get a new hope in life and overcoming her illnesses. But 50,000 here, we could pull 20 children out of hell and get them back to their families. So we helped make that happen, introduced them to some people, and then a few weeks later, I got a phone call from the Homeland Security agent. He said, "Paul," he said, I'm here in Cartagena. There's not just 20 children here. There's more than 50, and there's more than 100 children in other areas that are tied to these different trafficking rings." He said, "We have a plan that we could rescue all 100 children on the same day at the same time." He said, "If we don't do this, there's a chance that the other traffickers would hear if we rescue 20 at a time, and they would take their kids in a place where we couldn't identify them." He said, "But we have a plan. We could rescue all of them, but I need your help to pull it off." And I said, "Well, how much do you need?" He said, "I need you. Can you be in Colombia in 2 days?" He said, "I have to have somebody who can play the role of a wealthy real estate investor." He said, "The head trafficker down here has a piece of property he wants to develop into a child brothel sex resort. He needs a few $1,000,000 to do it. He believes he could make tens of millions of dollars a year selling children to Americans." He said, "If you're willing to fly down here, convince him that you're willing to look at that project under one condition. He has a party in a couple weeks. You bring all your rich friends who are into that kind of thing. And if you're happy with the inventory he has," and they already identified that he had over 50 through his network in that immediate area alone. He said, "If he brings all the inventory he currently has, then you'll consider funding his project if you're happy." So 2 days later, I'm in Colombia. I'm face to face with the most evil people on the planet. And halfway through this meeting at this restaurant, one of the traffickers leans forward and he says, "Pablo," he said, "I have a gift for you." I said, "Really? What's your gift?" He hands me his phone, and there's a picture of an 11-year-old girl on his phone. He said, "This is Princess. She's still a virgin. We just took delivery of some. She's my gift for you for this party." And he started talking about horrible things I could do to this little girl. In the movie, my character is played by Eduardo Verasti. He's the wealthy real estate investor that the Homeland Security agent's like, "Okay, yeah, we need to get Pablo here so he can help fund it and play this role." I'm Pablo in real life, and the only way that I turned him down in the movie, I didn't want to go, and then he gave a picture to my driver, and when I see this picture of this little girl, it convinced me to go. In real life, I was already there. I only had 2 days to get there. And I went down as me, as Paul Hutchinson, not as an undercover anything. I went down as this wealthy real estate investor. But what galvanized my commitment to help save those children is when he leaned forward and handed me that picture of that little girl. And I thought, this is really happening. These guys are selling me 10, 11, 12-year-old children for sex. This has to stop. So I can continue during the actual rescue. In fact, I'll just touch on that really quickly. 2 weeks later, we fly back in. Our guys met with the Homeland Security guys, met with the federal agents that were there in the area, the Colombian ones, the U.S. Embassy. Colombia provided a bunch of agents, like 40 agents for us. 4 of them were our maids, our waiters, our cooks. You know, they're not very good cooks, but they're armed. 25 were there to storm the party at the right time. And these guys brought 54 children. Almost every one of them were under the age of 16 years old. Many of them were taken from other countries as well. And we put the children in a separate part of the house. They were already traumatized enough. We don't want them seeing the money changing hands and the guns coming in, etc. And one of the traffickers got up and he said, "Pablo, I have to show you the gifts that I brought you." And he went in the house where the children are, and we could hear a few of the children crying. They were so scared of coming out and meeting these men who were going to defile them. And pretty soon he came out with 4 virgins, scared to death. 3 little girls, 1 little boy. This little boy, he was 11. They gave him cocaine that morning because he was so scared it was going to hurt. What kind of monster thinks that that's attractive in any way? And this little girl, the same one he showed me on the picture. Yes, in real life, she was there at the party, the one that he showed me in the picture that we were going after. And she was standing there in front of me. I'm sitting down on a chair. She was standing up. She wasn't much taller than I was, so I was looking directly into her eyes. And all I could see was fear. And I asked her name. I said, "¿Cómo te llamas?" She didn't know her name. I'm sure it's because her real name wasn't Princess. She was trying to figure out what she should say. And I said, "Está bien. It's okay." I told the traffickers, it's not time for the party to start. We still need to negotiate some things. Send the girls back in. Send the kids back in. But that moment, when I looked into her eyes, I made a commitment to myself, to God, to that child, that I would dedicate my life to eradicating that evil from the face of the earth. And they weren't supposed to tell the children that we were the good guys. And maybe they said something. The most beautiful moment of my life was after the agents came, stormed the party, arrested everybody. Child Protective Services people came in with the children, and they started laughing. They started singing. And that sound of freedom, of them singing, compared to the crying we heard half an hour before, that sound of freedom was the most beautiful sound that I ever heard. I started crying. I turned to the government agent that was with us. I said, I spent my whole life making money, making rich people richer. I want to make a difference. I want to help. How can I help? And he said, "Paul," he said, I can't teach some of my Navy SEALs how to wear a $50,000 watch and a multi-million-dollar, business transaction conversations, whatever. He said, "We've got some amazing men and women that have served in the military." He said, "They will offer up protection, but we need somebody who can play a role of this wealthy partier that we can pull these parties together." And so I continued. He said, "If you're willing to be the bait, I'll change your whole life." So for the next 10 years, I continued doing undercover work and working hand in hand with these great men and women in former military guys. And I helped lead or play a key part in over 70 undercover rescue missions in 15 countries. And I have seen the pit of hell. I have seen children in the most horrific situations that you can imagine. It is real. And the only thing required for evil to flourish is for you and I, for the good people who are listening right now, for good men and women to do nothing. If we can stand up and protect our children, protect this next generation, then we can eradicate child trafficking for good.
as a father of three, uh, like I said, it just hits me in my heart. I wrote some things down because I'm not ignoring you, but I'm writing things down because stuff that I really want to touch on. First of all, you talked about how they're not, I wouldn't even consider people. Children were just inventory. They weren't children, they weren't boys and girls, they were inventory. And then when you said they were delivering the inventory, it's like they're not even, the kids don't even exist in their eyes.
No.
What was that like when the first, because obviously if you see it, but the first time you experience something like that, and how did you not just
Rip their throats out.
look at it like, what'd you say? You know what I mean? 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm sure that it didn't, because that's not the way we talk. But
Yeah,
I'm sure
exactly.
that second it didn't
Well,
click.
Well, when that trafficker showed me that first picture, that was my first real interaction with seeing a trafficked child. And there was a Navy SEAL that was standing behind me, named Dutch. Good man. And he was there as my real bodyguard and my show bodyguard, right? And this rich guy coming down to do this party, whatever. And he looked down and he saw that picture of that little girl. And he excused himself. He said, "Hey guys, I need to take a look around the neighborhood or the restaurant, make sure everything is all safe." And he took a walk around. Later, when we were debriefing, he said that little girl looked like my child at home. He said, "I almost unholstered my weapon right there and shot him in the head." He said, it made me so angry that they would treat them like that." And fast forward, now understand, I thought that I would, when I was going down there, I thought, okay, traffickers, what do they look like? They probably have, tattoos all over their face and 3 earrings and all this stuff. No, the first trafficker I met was a businessman in a polo shirt, clean shaven, had a piece of property that he had inherited, he wanted to develop into this brothel. The second one was a beautiful woman. She was running this fake modeling agency and bringing these children in, and it was horrific. And I realized that the common thread, and this is over the last 10 years, the common thread with these traffickers was not they were all on cocaine, wasn't that they all had tattoos on their faces. No, the common thread is that they all had massive degrees of greed and arrogance. Greed to the point where money was more important to them than the safety of other people, of the children, especially, where arrogance put them in a place where they thought that they were better than somebody else. In fact, I realized as I looked around, and there were even people that were involved with us that were part of some of the rescue missions, that this stuff all went to their head and it went into this arrogance. I realized you're playing in the same energy as these traffickers. In fact, to be frank and honest, it's the reason why I was brought in, is because these traffickers are used to dealing with people like Jeffrey Epstein's, these big, arrogant assholes that can write whatever check. Now, it's not just them. There's people of all socioeconomic levels that are trafficking children. We'll talk about that. But in every single case, it's a level of arrogance where you see your needs above somebody else's, and yourself above. The very second that we look at another human being as an object, then we're going down the dark road. Now, I'm going to hit on it right here. Every single person that's listening to us right now has seen pornography. That's not going to mean that you're going to become a pedophile. But every one of these guys started out with an addiction, a hardcore addiction that led to something harder. They, like a hard drug, they needed something harder to have that same fix. And for some of them, harder was a little bit younger. Pretty soon they're fantasizing about things they wouldn't have even thought was attractive 5 years ago. And then they're acting out on these horrific fantasies. And people are saying, "Oh, I can control myself. I don't go that dark, whatever else." But look at your life over the last 5 years. Did it start with softcore pornography and then it went hardcore, and now you're looking at rape videos? The second that we indulge in something that is unfulfilling, like drugs, like hardcore drugs, like pornography, etc., that we get addicted, especially when we're looking at another human being as a commodity, then we're playing in that same energy as these guys who are trafficking children. So we can't just look back and just point fingers and say, those guys are evil and I'm good. We need to look in the mirror and say, what am I doing to contribute to the negativity globally of what's happening with humanity? If that makes sense. And then what happened, what really crossed the line for me is when I said, you guys are, when he had shown me that picture of that little girl, and he said, you know, she's still a virgin. I said, now you have other virgins? You said you just got in some new inventory. You're bringing those too. He goes, oh no. He said, they're too expensive. I said, they're too I'm already paying $25,000 to this guy, $25,000 for this party. I'm paying $500 per child just for minimum 50 children, just for 2 hours in the afternoon with them. He goes, Jefe, you already paid $25,000. You want to fuck these other virgins? It's going to cost you extra $2,000, maybe $5,000 for that little one. It's going to cost you maybe $10,000 more. I was legitimately mad at him. I let my arrogance show through full force. I have a $50,000 watch on. I've got a nice suit. I put my hands on my chest and I say, you don't think I can afford an extra $10,000? He said, oh, no, Jefe, no. I said, I want every one of those virgins at my party. I said, they damn well better be virgins when they get there. They're not for you. They're for me. You understand? He goes, oh, yeah, Jefe, I understand. The stupid smile on his face. But then the female trafficker leans forward. She goes, oh, no. She says, she's speaking in Spanish. This was behind a translator talking through here. But she said, oh, no, we can't bring the virgins. And for a second, I thought that she had a heart. I thought, oh, wow, this is interesting. She doesn't want to bring she's scared that they're, and she goes, no, she said, we have to get them ready. We have to show them pornography. We have to show them live sex acts. She said, and we're going to give them drugs when they get there, but they're probably going to cry. But if you're okay, if they cry while they're being raped, basically, then I'm okay with bringing them. And I realized she had no heart whatsoever. She was just worried that me and my buddies at this party would be concerned if the children were crying while they were being raped. And I saw this over and over again. Richard, the one of the most difficult ones, I was in Dominican Republic. There was a trafficker who was an escaped convict from a US prison. And he had introduced us to a woman, a mother, who was selling her own children. She had a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old, and she was selling them for $10,000 each. She thought that I was taking them to Miami to work in an underage brothel or whatever in Miami. And for her, having $20,000 meant the world instead of having to deal with those two children. And what broke my heart is when this felon gets me on the phone with this mother. He had brought the children so we could see him, and she wanted to talk to us. And she said, you have to make me a promise. If you buy my girls and take them to do what they're going to do, she said, you have to make me a promise. And I thought there would be some kind of compassion coming through. I thought that she would say, just be nice to them, take care of them, whatever. I said, yeah, what promise? What promise? She said, you need to promise me that when you're done with them, you need to be done with them. She said, I don't want this ever coming back on me. That was dark. I thought, what has humanity gotten? What kind of a point have we gotten to where we think that it's okay to traffic your own children for money? And we all, like I say, we all sit back on these high horses saying, oh, I wouldn't do that. Well, you have to look in the mirror and ask yourself, what degrees of arrogance and greed are affecting other people's lives in some way right now? How are we playing in that same energy, and how can we heal humanity from that evil?
Well, and I don't want to sound disrespectful at all, because that's not the way I am. But it's the only way I can get it across. I'm from New Jersey. My wife's full blooded Italian. My father's Sicilian, and they use the word rat a lot. So how did you survive 10 years in doing what you're doing undercover without being found out? I think that's amazing by itself, because I love the movie Donnie Brasco, and I've talked to Donnie Brasco, and it's amazing how you didn't get caught in 10 years of helping that many kids. And what was that like, knowing for 10 years, 24 hours a day, 7 weeks, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the jig could be up and your life will be snuffed out. If they don't care about a kid, they sure as hell ain't going to care about you. So
For
what
sure.
was that like? And also, I don't know if you've ever been asked that this before, but a lot of veterans, first responders, a lot of us deal with post-traumatic stress. A lot of us deal with survivor's guilt because of the ones that we couldn't help. So talk about
Mhm.
that a little bit. I don't think that really gets talked a lot about, especially when people like yourself are helping all these people out. That when you're alone at night and you're in the middle of the night and you're having nightmares, if you do, you might not, but I know a lot of people struggle with that. So if you wouldn't mind talking about that.
Absolutely. So, first of all, when we did one of these missions, me and the other operators, we were taken out in handcuffs. The bad guys don't even know that we had anything to do with it. They think that we got extradited to the U.S. to stand trial. Number one. Number two, especially in Latin America, a lot of these organizations weren't well networked. They were, one of my operators said that he was talking to the drug lord in the area, and the drug lord said, "Listen, you may not agree with how I do business, but I've got children of my own, and those guys are evil, and I'm going to kill them. And if I do, you've got a whole bunch of little children. You don't know where they are. Or I tell you what I know. You guys go in, you pull those kids out, get them back to their families. You make sure he goes to jail, and I'll take care of it from there." So there's just like here in the U.S., the guys who are abusing children, there's a pecking order in the prison system, right? They have to separate them from the bank robbers and the murderers, etc.,
Mhm.
because they'll take them out. And
Yep.
so that was a level of safety in and of itself. So these guys are trafficking kids, or they are not the yes, they would kill us in a heartbeat if they knew who we were. And there were a number of cases where they were super dangerous guys, like that one I just told you about. This was an ex-con that had escaped from the US, etc. So yes, there's a lot of bad guys like that. I will say this. Two quick stories. The very first phone call that I got, my business partner called me about an hour later after he heard what I was going to do, and he said, "Paul," he says, "have you thought this through?" He said, "This is dangerous." He said, "You're set. You could sell out your business, buy an island, be happy the rest of your life." I said, "Would I really be happy if I bought an island, if I bought a yacht, if I bought a jet, whatever?" I said, "If I was doing something else dangerous, if I was climbing Everest, you and I would have the same conversation." He said, "Yeah, we probably would." I said, "And when I'm 95 years old and I look back on my life, and I tell people I climbed this mountain and I helped build this big company and I helped rescue this many children from sex slavery. Which one of them matters at all?" He said, "Yeah." He said, I see where you're coming from." Now, I also will tell you this. I feel safer. In fact, I'll tell you this story because I think this is important from an audience standpoint. I brought on a new team at one point, and these guys hadn't worked with me before, and they were some former special forces guys, et cetera. And it was about 2 a.m. We hadn't found any real traffickers, and I said, "Guys, can I take lead? Are you good with that?" And they said, "Yeah, yeah." Tim said, "You're really good at this. I want to see how you handle it, how you find these kids." I said, "All right." I said, "You need to follow exactly what I say." I said, "First things first, I need you to understand that I believe in God." I said, "Most people believe in a supreme being. Some people call God the universe, or Heavenly Father, Mother, Jehovah. Even other religions may call him. There's a lot of different words for God, right?" I said, "There's a higher power that." I said, "God exists and cares more about these children than you and I ever could, and knows exactly where they are. So if you're okay with it, even if you're not okay with it, I'm going to start by asking for some help." So here we are in downtown Port-au-Prince, Haiti, the darkest, most voodoo infested place on the Western Hemisphere, and we take off our hats and offer up a prayer. Then I said, "Now I need you to understand how I see fear and faith." I said, most people think that faith is going to church and asking God to fix things in their life that they don't even believe are going to be fixed. I said, that's not faith. Faith is it's one of the most powerful laws in the universe. And it's simply this: it's the unwavering conviction that what I want to have happen will happen because it's in line with God's will. And that power, that infinite power, will come in and create anything, any miracle you can imagine. I said, it's important to know that fear and faith cannot exist in the same person at the same time. The reason behind it, in some way, they're the same power. People who believe bad things will happen to them actually attract that into their life. People who believe good things will happen to them attract that into their life. I said, faith is an alignment with God, an alignment with good. And it's an alignment with all of the creation, everything that you want to put together and create in your life. I said, because of the fact that fear and faith don't exist together, I said, I feel safer here at 2 a.m. in this one of the highest murder capital areas in the world at the time. I said, I feel safer here than I do sitting in my office at home, because I believe with every cell in my body, I believe that we are on God's mission. I think that God looks down and he sees, what we're doing in our life. Should I marry this woman? Should I, go to this new job? And you adults deal with that. He sees what's happening with these children and says, no way. If I have good men and women willing to do the work, I'm going to pave the way. And as Jesus as my brother, hand in hand, we're able to go into the darkest places of hell. In fact, a few years ago for Halloween, I dressed up as an angel in devil's clothing, because that's how I felt for many years. I put on pure white shirt and pants and, bright lights and even little angel wings, on the inside. And then I put this black cloak around the outside with this devil head and whatever else. Because on the outside, to the traffickers, that's what I looked like. But in the inside, I had to have that relationship with God. I had to have that solid foundation of faith in order to even survive in those areas. And most importantly, to be able to listen to that still small voice of truth. I have a book coming out early next year called Are You Listening with My Hand on My Heart? Not are you listening with my hand on my ear, but are you listening with my hand on my heart? Talking about how every one of my missions, every one of them, I felt a divine guidance to where the children were being held and to ways that we could keep our team safe. So that's a long answer to your question, but that is everything about keeping safe and feeling like we were truly on God's errand in finding these children.
So now, when you would get home from these missions, because I love missions, I mission to God with this podcast. So, but a lot of times when we're in the military, I did 23 years, and we would get back from our mission and it'd be dead quiet. It'd be silence. And even if we, whatever, if we won, whatever, we would still all go back to our racks or back to our bunks. When you think we'd be enjoying it, it got real quiet. And then a lot of us went to bed, and a lot of us woke up because we might have lost somebody, and even now to this day, a lot of us still deal with that post-traumatic stress. A lot of us still deal with that. Man, I didn't save that one. Like for me, I've helped hundreds of thousands of people, but it still haunts me the 2 people that I lost that I didn't help. So talk about, 'cause I don't know if you've struggled with any mental health issues or any PTS, especially in the middle of the night when it's only you and it's quiet and dark and you're alone with your thoughts.
Yeah. I not only myself, but a lot of my operators. I have a good friend who was a Green Beret who led over 300 missions in the Middle East. And he's seen the worst that the world had to offer. So he thought in serving in the military. And when he went on his first mission undercover to find trafficked children, it rocked his world. It rocked his world. It was so heavy, and it made him sick to his stomach that this kind of thing is even happening. And that story I told you about the mother that was selling those two children is one of many that, unfortunately, because of some hiccups in the mission or some corrupt government officials or other things, we had to scrap the mission, and those children were not able to be rescued. In that one, that ex-con actually got shot by another one of the traffickers, and I didn't have the phone number of the mother that was selling her kids, so he was fortunately taken out of the picture, but unfortunately we weren't able to identify those children and get them out, and there was no way for us to find them. And that was heavy, because a mother that would sell her children and say, when you're done with them, I want you to be done with them. Those children need to be in a safe place. They need to be in a place that is not toxic with a mother like that. We need to help her heal, or whatever we need to do. And we couldn't do that. And that was super difficult for a few of my operators, and seeing it firsthand. And I will say that it took me a while to change. It took me a couple years of being, Paul Hutchinson, I've got the money and whatever. And I was brought into these operations because I had pictures of me with Lamborghinis and Ferraris and whatever. And the undercover operators needed to show this lifestyle of somebody who could write these big checks and whatever, that was enticing these traffickers, because they were used to the Jeffrey Epstein type people when they were doing these parties, so to speak. But after about a year and a half of doing that, I was asked to start doing the deep cover, going 2 a.m. in downtown Mexico City or other cities, in identifying the traffickers and seeing where they were holding the children. And that was hard. It was dark. It was difficult. And that's when I really had a personal transformation. Now, I'll say this: I've changed my entire focus to helping to liberate humanity. All of my social media is all liberating humanity. It's all about healing. It's all about healing, not just healing the children, but more important, healing the adults. I've realized that my role is not just rescuing the 10-year-old from the clutches of a trafficker in Colombia. My role is to help every good man and woman do their own undercover child rescue mission and rescue the 10-year-old inside of their own soul. That child that wasn't given the love that they need, that was abused in some way a lot. And this is as we help to alleviate the PTSD of our operators, we also realized that there were tools that could help men and women who were abused as children themselves release that trauma that they've been holding on for a long time. Now, let me just touch on this, because I think this is important. Eradicating child trafficking is not going to happen from just going undercover and pulling 20 children out at a time. The reason being is that every time we pulled 20 kids out of hell, if not enough was being done to fix the demand, then another 20 children were being sucked back into that horrific space to fill that demand. And so I had to ask myself, where is that demand coming from? Why is anybody interested in something that horrific? And I came to understand that as men, 1 out of every 5, 20% of all men have admitted that they were a victim of sexual violence at some time in their life. And 1/4 of them, it was under the age of 10 years old in their own home. Now, the average age of somebody even speaking out about it is 52 years old. And the average man never says anything, because he's like, oh, that will make me less of a man. That thing that happened to me as I was 8 years old. That was my uncle. I can't say anything. I'll be less of a man if I did. No, you won't. You were 8. You were 8 years old. And that was somebody that was dealing with some horrific pain that was passing on that pain to that child. Helping that child heal will alleviate years of low self-esteem, anger issues, anxiety, depression. And in some cases, 1 out of every 3 men who deal with that kind of, now God bless the 2/3 that never let that trauma be passed on. God bless them. They end up becoming warriors of light. They end up using that pain to ensure that that pain is never passed on to children. But they still deal with their anger issues, and sometimes verbal and physical abuse comes out because they're dealing with this trauma. But however, 1 in every 3, 1/3, become contact offenders themselves if not given the love, the help, the healing that they need. So if we're going to eradicate child trafficking, we need to help 20, 30, 40-year-old men and women, especially us men, deal with our trauma, get over our PTSD, get over that childhood trauma, release that in a way where we never, ever, ever pass that on, not only in sexual abuse, but in some cases, physical and verbal abuse as well. And so that's what my whole focus has been. And I'm going to go there on this because I think it's important. Some people may not agree with this next 2 minutes, but I'll tell you what it is. There was back in the late 60s, President Nixon decided he was going to throw a bunch of things under the bus and classify these tools, these medicines, as Schedule I drugs. I'm talking about different types of psychedelics. Okay, I'm talking about
microdosing.
Yep. Yes, sassafras, white lily, and psilocybin. Psilocybin is mushrooms. Psilocybin, we've been taught our whole life, oh, that's super dangerous. You go to jail forever if you have some of that. It must be horrible. There's been 0 cases of addiction. There's been 0 cases of overdose. This is safer than table sugar. And when used properly in a guided meditation, and this was what transformed my life and every one of my operators who were dealing with that kind of pain and PTSD from being in the military, all of this stuff together, we could do 24 hours, get as much as 10 years of therapy done in 24 hours. Read a book called Change Your Mind. Another one called
there was a great Netflix series called Change Your Mind. All about
absolutely. And this is something that releasing that pain of seeing children in chains, releasing the pain of 300, operations that my Navy SEAL or my Green Beret friend had been. All of these things are things that we're able to release and come to a beautiful place of peace and a connection with God that is something you can't do any other place. And so we started hosting. I've hosted and facilitated over 50 guided meditation, plant medicine, healing journey experiences, and we like the fully immersive. We're talking 4 and 5 days down in Latin America, a place where you take 10 men together, 20 men together, or 5 men and their wives together, whatever. We don't like a group any more than 10 or 15 people at a time, and have them the first day talking through things and setting clear intentions. And then from there, being able to do a facilitated. I'm not an advocate of somebody just going and getting, having a trip on mushrooms by themselves. But if you have a guided meditation experience with a trained facilitator, the Johns Hopkins University did a study. 76% of people who do one of those say it was the #1 most transformational 24 hours of their life. So anyway, we're helping to change the laws in the U.S. I believe that MDMA will be approved through the FDA within the next 6 months. Psilocybin very close after that. We have states like Colorado and Oregon and California, and now even Nevada, who are trying to have at least decriminalize the use of these tools in trauma therapy. So, and we're working with a lot of guys who are helping vets work with PTSD in miraculous ways using some of these tools. So,
yep. And I have some friends that are Green Berets, and they go to Peru every year, go on a ayahuasca retreat, and they come back revitalized and changed and transformed. But let's get back to for the last couple of minutes, because now because we have that called the reticulator activating system in the brain, that whatever you look for, you're going to find. And that ever since I watched your show and watched the movie and watched your interviews, now I'm seeing it and I'm hearing it everywhere. It's not just happening in Latin America, Europe. Kids are coming up missing in Ohio, California, New Jersey, everywhere across the United States. So as a father, my daughter's 11 years old. She's my soul and my heart. How can we help make sure that our kids are safe and they're not being taken and taken advantage of?
That's the best question of all of them. Because that's on the minds of every parent when they leave the movie. People say, "What can I do? How can I fix this?" The worst thing you can do is go be a Rambo and go to Colombia and try to rescue kids. You're probably going to get shot, right? And you're going to get arrested if you don't have the right connection. So the best thing you can do is go home and hug your children. People say, "Well, how's that going to help?" No, it helps a lot. Here's why. The majority of children that go missing here in the US, the majority of them you never even hear about. Here's why. They're from broken families, runaways. They're in a broken foster care program where the traffickers can bring and lure these children out. And they don't get all the media all over them because you don't have an affluent family that's trying to figure out where their child went. Okay, so to keep them from being trafficked, yes, those are making sure that you have a solid nuclear foundation of your family at home, a solid nucleus there. But more important than that are these numbers. Of your daughters, okay, every man who's listening today, 1 out of every 4 women have been a victim of sexual violence as a child. 92% of the cases, it was a familial member, meaning a neighbor or an extended family, a parent, even in some cases. So you need to have the best way to keep your children safe is to have a relationship with your children that they can easily and comfortably come to you and talk about things that they're uncomfortable with. Things like you need your daughter to very easily come to you and say, "Hey, Dad, I don't feel good when you make me hug Uncle Harry when he comes over because it just makes me feel weird." Right? Or I don't like going to this friend's house because her brother hugs me and slaps me on my bum when I do. Or I don't our babysitter is having us watch pornography and tells us that we should trust her more than you. These are grooming behaviors. And statistically, the chances of your daughter being taken by traffickers and put in a container ship and taken to another country, statistically, that's very, very low. That doesn't happen very often. However, there's a very high probability, 1 in 4, that your daughter, by the time she's 18, is going to be a victim of sexual violence. And she won't say anything. The average age even of women who say something about it is 52 years old. And they hold that trauma in for decades. So making sure that they're super comfortable coming to you and saying, "Hey, this happened to me." One of the reasons why the trafficked children recover and they're resilient so quickly is because we know they've been trafficked and they can immediately get the psychological help that they need to recover at that young age. If your daughter is being abused in any way and is holding it in, she'll be 20 and 30 and 40 years old holding on to this low self-esteem, this anxiety, this depression, these anger issues because it wasn't resolved when it was an injury immediately. And it's been festering for years. And so being able to have her, even if something weird happened at school, "Hey, these 5 kids came and held me down at recess and did these things to me and, touched me here, whatever else." She needs to have a relationship with you where she can come and say, "This happened to me." So immediately you can have some intervention, help her to heal through that trauma so that it doesn't stay with her forever. And especially your young men, because them holding on to that trauma is one of the causes of so much PTSD, so much anger issues. And like I say, 1 in every 3 of them end up passing that trauma on. We can save millions of children by helping heal those at any age, helping heal those who have dealt with some kind of issue before.
Okay, now I just want to say something before we go on real quick. I've always believed that like when I wake up in the morning, every morning, I wake up, I get my coffee, my energy drink, I go kiss my daughter on the forehead, and I say, "Good morning, beautiful. I love you." And then she sees me kissing her mother, telling her, "Good morning, honey. You look beautiful today," and I kiss her. And I think a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, if a daughter, even son, if they feel loved and appreciated by their parents, it's a lot. I mean, it might still happen, but it's a lot less likely for them to be promiscuous or to get into trouble when they get older if they know they were valued and loved from the beginning. Have you,
Yes,
ever
giving
something like
your
that?
your child's there's two gifts that you can give your child that are better than anything that you could ever buy. Number one is healthy self-esteem, and number two is a relationship with their creator, a relationship with God. Those two things will carry them through everything. Now, how do you have a healthy self-esteem? Yes, by telling them that they're loved, but your relationship with your spouse plays a bigger role than you can imagine on your child's self-esteem. When they see mommy and daddy who truly love each other and who both of them love that child, love that little girl, that little boy unconditionally, regardless of what mistakes they made, your love will never falter, and God's love will never falter. Once they realize that their love from God and their love from you is truly unconditional, and they see that healthy relationship with your spouse, and they feel that love from God and from you and your spouse, those will give them those gifts that will carry them through anything in life.
Okay, so now I wanted, before the last couple of minutes, and I said we go an hour, so I'm trying to be respectful of your time. But I'm a big Jim Caviezel fan. I love Jim. I wish I could remember the movie where he played the firefighter. And I've watched it. Oh, anytime it's on, I watch it. I've watched The Passion of the Christ, I don't know, 20 times because that movie's so great. I love Jim Caviezel. But once everybody knew that he was a Christian, he got ostracized in Hollywood. And then to put out this movie, everything kind of got ostracized. And it seems like the Christian community came out in force to support you guys. And which
Yeah.
I was amazing because, I mean, you guys were crushing other movies that had huge budgets, and, Disney wouldn't even put your movie out. But, it seems like people showed up. But you also got a lot of haters once the movie came out. And I know, Tim got wrapped up in some stuff, and then they try to get you on some stuff, just trying to create havoc. So
Yeah.
what was that like afterward when you're trying to do a good thing and then you're getting shit on by a lot of different people? What was that like?
Yeah. I if you if you want to play small, get a garden on a river with get a house on a river with a garden and a gun. And, for a while I thought that's the life I want to live. Screw people. But I realized that the only way to fulfill my promise to God and to that child that first day of dedicating my life to eradicating this evil, the only way to do that is to create this movement and create this movie. In fact, I was fully undercover until just a month or two before we signed a deal with Angel Studios. And God was telling me, you have to go public. And I was told that, it's gonna get ugly. There's gonna be people that throw rocks. And that's okay. You hold to your truth, and light will prevail. Now, understand that nobody's perfect. Jim Caviezel's not perfect. Tim Ballard's not perfect. I'm not perfect. Eduardo Verosky. I mean, all these guys, we all have we're all humans. And, but at the same time, I am not ashamed of anything that I did while I was doing undercover work, every part of it was necessary as this movement to create an end to child trafficking. And when we put together the movie in the beginning, we talked to Paramount and Sony and Lionsgate and others, and they were interested, but they wanted to be able to take the storyline and twist it to what met their narrative. And we thought, no, that's not going to work. We're going to go out ourselves. I became the primary investor. I was the first investor in the movie, and we put together the entire script so that we have everything locked in. This is what the movie will be. And then we realized that big Hollywood and that we didn't want them to be involved. We needed to have some people who had the right heart. Alejandro Monteverde is a man of God. He is a man of integrity. And as the director did a magnificent job in creating this work of art. But there's probably going to be more crap of people throwing things out that are going to try to throw this entire movement under the rug because Jim Caviezel was speaking at a QAnon event, or because Tim Ballard had some relationships with people outside of his marriage. Because of, there's all kinds of crap out there, and it is what it is. Children are being sold. That does not take away from the message at all. And yeah, there was a undercover operations where I was in precarious positions with very dangerous people. One of my podcasts, I go into detail, and it'll take 15 minutes to go through it all, but we were in a very dangerous place, very dangerous people. And the traffickers brought out these girls from this club, very obvious that they weren't minors. And but he's like, you like this? This is what your boss is looking for, or whatever, and pulled up one of her blouses. And I was sitting there with my operators undercover, and the trafficker, 6'4" guy, had killed people before, picks up my hand and moves it forward. If I had pulled it back, I would have been shot right there, for sure, no doubt about it. She wasn't a minor, and I touched her boob. Great, look it up online. Producer of Sound of Freedom movie touches victim's breast while undercover. When they were brought to the rescue mission, those girls that were brought from that club, the federal agents in Mexico identified them as all 19, 20, and 21 years old, right? But that's irrelevant. Even if they were 16, like he said they were, that was irrelevant. We were there working with the Mexican federal police, and 23 victims now are in a position where they never have their bodies sold by these traffickers to foreigners that are coming down to do these horrible things. So I do not regret anything. I acted with integrity, and I feel good. I can stand before God today, him knowing that I acted with pure integrity on that mission and the others as we helped identify these children.
And I love it. Like I said, that's why I wanted to make sure that, this show is no BS, no fluff. We want to make sure that people know what really happened, but also tell us about the OUR, because I never knew about the OUR until I started doing my due diligence after the movie and started doing my studying. I think that's, I think it's amazing. So talk about that.
So here's the thing. I worked as an undercover operator, identifying children that working with OUR. In fact, I was on their very first board of directors right in the beginning, and then had to make the choice. They said you can't be on the board and do undercover, so I chose to do undercover work instead. Got off the board of directors and continued to do operations for years. 5 years ago, I actually made a hard break, a separation 5 years ago. That the movie was already finished. We had brought in 8 different rescue missions and stories from a lot of different operators, and had to put them into a storyline with just a few characters in the movie. And I had witnessed some things that I wasn't comfortable with the foundation at the time. And so I separated from OUR and from Tim Ballard 5 years ago, complete hard separation to the, and now I never would throw them under the bus, nothing. Anybody, in my mind, anybody who is creating awareness of child trafficking and creating a movement in any way, I can keep doing what you're doing. But for me and my time, I was going to donate my money to a bunch of these Navy SEALs and Green Berets, these operators who had left OUR themselves. They weren't interested in playing that energy with Tim either. And they're like, you know what, we're done with this. So I was helping to fund their missions and continue to do so today. So our foundation is the Child Liberation Foundation. And we help to fund we continue to fund the rescue, rehabilitation, and reuniting of children with their families. We continue to fund, majority of our money is going into healing the children and creating expansions on the safe houses with the healing retreats. And the big part of my focus is in liberating humanity as a whole, so that we can save millions of children by helping the adults heal and work through their issues as well.
And I love it. Now, something that I love that you really did with the movie is, some people, maybe they couldn't afford to go, or some people were just like, you know what, like there's sometimes somebody will be like, you want to go to the movies? And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to spend my money. And they'll be like, well, I'll treat you. Okay, I'll go just because you're going to treat me. But you guys actually gave out a lot of free tickets for people to go watch it. And I think that created a bigger buzz because people that weren't expected to be touched were really touched when they got there because it wasn't what they expected, right?
Yeah. Well, and all the credit goes to Angel Studios with that. They, as you may know, Angel Studios is the group that brought the TV series The Chosen, one of the most beautiful films, a TV series on the life of Christ. It's absolutely amazing how well they did with the TV series The Chosen. And they have a grassroots movement with good men and women, most of them Christians who of course supported The Chosen, who when they were wanting to take this to the world, we wanted to take it from the people, by the people, to the people. This was funded by the people, not by big Hollywood. It's me and some other families and stuff that did it, and to the people. And then with the tickets and so many millions of good people coming forward saying, yes, I want to be a part of this. I want to make a movement. I want to help other people see what's going on and find ways that they can keep their children safe.
So now, like I said, brother, I'm so appreciative of you. I love you as a brother in Christ, and I'm so grateful that Eric put us together, and I love Eric. So where can we find the movie now? And also, how can we help support your mission so our children, even if they were hurt, can heal so the trauma stops with us? So how do we go about doing that?
Absolutely. You can go online today. Just in fact, Apple TV. You can download the movie for $20 right now on Apple TV. We just signed a contract with Amazon, and very soon you'll be able to download it on Amazon as well. I believe it's also available online on YouTube. So worldwide, you can download it. You can watch it in your own homes right now on your Apple TV, and very soon at Amazon. And I think it will touch the lives of everybody in your family who hasn't had a chance to see it. Now, to find me, you can go on to Instagram or Facebook or anywhere. Just look up Liberating, Liberating. Put on liberating.humanity. I come up first if you just type in Liberating, and you can hear so many stories and get so many tools. In fact, you can go to liberatinghumanity.com. And there's a lot of tools there, not only some things you can use to keep your children safe, some courses on self-defense, some meditation courses, some different prayer tools that you can use to connect with God. These are all tools that we're collaborating together with healers around the world to help people heal from their trauma, give them tools to keep their children safe. All of that available on Liberating Humanity. If you want to be part of what we're creating with the foundation, with the Child Liberation Foundation, you can donate $1 a month. You can donate $100 a month. You can donate $1,000, whatever. You can just do a one-time donation. Go to liberatechildren.org, liberatechildren.org. Or you can just look up the Child Liberation Foundation, but liberatechildren.org, and you can get all the information you need there. Find ways to keep your kids safe there as well.
I love it. So, guys, make sure you follow him on Instagram. I also have been following The Sound of Freedom on Instagram. I've been following The Sound of Freedom on TikTok. I just started following that, and you guys have a lot of great stuff going on there. So, guys, make sure that you follow my brother, Paul. Guys, I just want to say, like my T-shirt says, I'm a big Joel Osteen guy, and I believe when he says that, because I've been abused, I've gone through a lot. But I believe today I get to decide to be a victim or be a victor. And if you guys are watching this show right now, you have the choice to no longer be a victim. Now you can be the victor. And I think, because like you said, like in my town, I'm in charge of helping all the kids stay off alcohol and drugs. 5,000 adolescents a day in the United States are attempting suicide. So there's a lot of kids out there hurting. And if the kids are hurting, the parents are hurting. So if the parents start healing, I think the kids will start healing. So I just wanted to say that, guys. Today, I decide guys, make the right decision. Become victors. No longer be the victim. Paul, brother, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard.
Guys, so make sure you check out The Sound of Freedom. I'm probably going to watch it again because now I have some better insights with talking to Paul. I love you guys. And remember, check out verticalmomentumpodcast.com. All of our t-shirts, hats, coffee, everything goes to help veterans struggle with PTSD and homelessness. I don't make any money off of it. I'm just trying to change my world in my little way. So I love you guys. Paul, brother, thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard. Truly an honor.
Have a great week.
You too.